together as Africans, journalists in this wonderful continent of Africa, to learn on public debt and how it affects our nations, our continent. So what really stood out for me was on how, as the media, we can use our power to influence the policies and policy makers, you know, with the power of our pen. I come from print background, so with the power of our pen, I believe we have been empowered on how we can influence policy makers on the issue of national debt and how national debt affects nations, citizens, and you know, the civil societies and everyone involved, because a lot of times I believe as Africans we are deemed to be rule takers. So AFRODAD came in and taught us the concept of being rule makers as Africans. We now have to own our narrative.
If you start imagining of the African countries and the way they run to rush to have dates from, for example, the institutions that give finances or debts, it is killing. Like, you start imagining African countries eating that well and spiced sandwich, not knowing that inside they placed a poison that will kill them very slowly. So I think such initiatives awaken us and they help us to open up our eyes and also try to bring the public to notice that, look, what your leaders are doing might be good for them, but it is not good for your children. Maybe you will not experience the impact of these debts that our leaders are taking, but tomorrow your children or your grandchildren will be crying in the name of you not preparing for them. So it's high time that we awaken them, and I'm very sure I'm going to take this initiative for myself. South Sudan being part of this initiative for the very first time, I'm sure I can be an ambassador, yes, in my country, to make sure we also mobilize more media outlets to get introduced into this kind of reporting on debt and data, especially on the tax and justice issues.
What stood out about this AFRODAD Media Initiative II was the highlight of debt that has been used as a capture is now the capture of the African continent, and so basically it's just now we're talking, have discussions on how we can change this and changing the narrative of the African continent on its reliance on the debt, and because we've seen a lot of distress for most of the countries and what impact it has had on our communities, on our economy, and now we're moving. The way we are going to change this narrative is the use of making being the country, the African countries on the African continent as the rule maker and not the rule taker.
And I made amazing networks, you know, from all over the continent, Anglophones and Francophones, various investigative journalists, feature writers and editors. I look forward to collaborating on issues of investigative stories. I'm passionate about social justice. So AFRODAD brought in another dimension of economic justice. So I now see myself as a socio-economic justice champion. So I believe this is going to be a wonderful journey going back home, because I'm going to deliver. I've been empowered. I'm going to deliver. I'm going to write. I'm going to speak. And if you can just go through my social media pages, I've already started.
Yes, so I have learned a lot, especially in the case of PPP, which is public-private partnership. I have also learned that we can teach our public, our people, on how to engage on these movements, these ways of how we can get like healthy dates that cannot really affect our country further.
During this media initiative, we got to meet and interact with so many journalists across the continent, and it is one thing that I realized is most of them face the same challenges that we face as a country in terms of information, and also not consistent in terms of telling the dead stories. And I think the conversation is maybe the part we play in terms of us as media, and in terms of maybe correcting some of these, like the debt distress that we mentioned. And so I think maybe for most of us, we're going to see us maybe create, I think, give a focus into death stories and also being consistent on it. Yes.
We have just launched an initiative. It's called MDNA. It's very important that we are also going to involve more media in South Sudan so that they can be part of this network, so that we can learn on how to report on debt and credit issues. How am I going to do it? Of course, with the help of the network, I'm very sure that I will get a lot of guidances on how I can do it uniquely. But what I want to do is to begin engaging our authorities, to begin engaging the civil society, to begin opening up the eyes of the people that are equivalently affected by this kind of debts that our countries involve in.
And I are the people who hold our governments to